Hello again, it's me, Mrs. Tremblay. We are now in section 2.6. We're just cruising along. Today we're going to learn how to write equations in point-slope form. So there has been slope-intercept form, where it's easy to identify the slope and the y-intercept. There is standard form, where it's really easy to identify the x and y intercepts. And now there is yet another form called point-slope form. And this form is useful, you guessed it, when you're given the slope and a point, and you can write an equation from it. So point-slope form means you're given a point and the slope, and you just plug it in. So the equation for this, and this is all still linear, is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. That's point-slope form. The line passes through the point x1, y1, and the slope of the line is m. So basically, this y and this x are going to stay y and x. Just like in y equals mx plus b, we replace the m and the b. In this equation, you're going to replace x1 and y1 with the ordered pair that you're given, and you're going to replace the slope with the slope that you're given. So it'll be y minus some number equals some number times the quantity of x minus some number. I'm sure that makes perfect sense. Anyway, this form is used when you have a slope and one point. You don't need to have a y-intercept for this form. That's what's kind of nice, because you're not always given the y-intercept. You're not always given a graph to find it. So you can't use this form with lines that have an undefined slope. That's kind of the drawback. So each form that you've learned about has its own special quality of why it's better than the rest when using it for certain things. This one, it's great for when you're given a slope and a point. Sometimes we are curious as to why things work, and if you're not curious as to why, I think it still helps to know why, or how on earth did they come up with this formula? So think about this, okay? If the slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, if that's what the slope is equal to, right? What you could do is I could say this, couldn't I? I could put m over 1. And when you have one fraction equal to another fraction, or one ratio equal to another ratio, we can use a proportion to solve it. If you cross multiply to set up a proportion with this, if I take y2 minus y1 and multiply it by 1, 1 times y2 is y2, and 1 times y1 is y1, right? Over here, I want to take m and I want to multiply it by that whole amount. That would look like m times the quantity of x2 minus x1. Oh my goodness. Don't those look exactly the same? Except I have a little 2 on there. So that's how this came about. They are equal to one another, I promise. Just like when you arrange a standard form equation back into y equals mx plus b, you can rearrange these back into y equals mx plus b. They're all the same. Okay, so basically, I want you to be able to write an equation using slope and a point in this form for starters. So you're going to be given a slope and a point. You're going to want to plug in x and y for your x1 and y1, and plug in your slope for the m. So let's try it. Here is 6, 1, and I tell you the slope is 2/3. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this is x1, this is y1. You're probably going to have to keep referring back to this formula for a bit. So the formula is y minus y1. That y stays y. And I want to subtract whatever y1 is. y1 is 1. That's equal to the slope m multiplied by x minus whatever x1 is. Guess what? You're done with that one. That's how you take the point and the slope and write it in the point-slope form. Isn't it beautiful? It's a lovely thing. Okay, take a look at the next one. Okay, so I'm supposed to take x1, y1, y minus y1. So y minus, now y1 is a -4, right? So I want to subtract a -4, and I'm supposed to take the slope, which is -2, and multiply it by x minus, x1 is 3. Now the thing with this is, when you see minus -4, that's like a little faux pas in math. You shouldn't really have that. So to simplify this, I'm going to write this instead of a double negative here as y plus 4 equals -2 times the quantity of x minus 3. This way here is the best way to write that. Okay, keep on going. Okay, there's my x1 and my y1. So I'm supposed to take y minus y1, that's equal to my slope times x minus x1. Voila. Now some of you, when you see this, you're like, y minus 0, well that's y, and 1 multiplied by anything is that. So I want to write it like that. If you wrote it like that, is that the point slope formula? No, that's not point slope form. This is y equals slope intercept, mx plus b form. So let's stick with that. All right, I have my x1 and my y1 again. Okay, I'm supposed to take y1, so here's y. And when I go to subtract a -5, I'm hoping that at this point, when you see -5 here, you realize that minus -5 is going to mean plus 5. My slope is -3/4, and I'm supposed to take x minus x1. Well, x1's a -8, and when I subtract a -8, it's the same as adding a +8. If you want to write it as subtraction and change it back to addition after, I am totally fine with that. You can do that too. Okay, so that's step 1, being able to take a slope and take a point and plug it into that equation. I think the subtracting the negative is the biggest error people make with that, so just be really cautious of it. The next thing I want you to be able to do is write equations in this form if I give you 2 points. So I do give you some instructions for this process. Let me zoom out. Sorry, I'm going backwards. There we go, and you've got this in front of you too. So writing equations in slope-intercept form when I give you 2 points. Well, basically, to write an equation in slope-intercept form, you need 1 point, or I'm sorry, in point-slope form, you need 1 point and you need the slope. In slope-intercept form, you need the slope and you need the y-intercept. Well, if I only give you 2 points, I haven't given you the y-intercept. And it's kind of tricky to find from 2 points. It's possible, but it's a little bit trickier. So if your ultimate goal is to write an equation in slope-intercept, and slope-intercept again, that's y equals mx plus b. If you want to write it in slope-intercept form and you're only given 2 points, you can use your point-slope form to help you. And here's how. So first thing, you're given the 2 points, you're going to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 and find the slope. That goes in for m. Then you have 2 points, right? I know for point slope you only need 1 point, so just choose one of those points, plug it in. So now we'll have the slope and a point, and we'll just rearrange that equation into y equals mx plus b. That'll allow us to find our y-intercept. So here we go. Hopefully these examples will help make those words make sense. So step 1 says to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find the slope. I'm going to underline my x's, circle my y's. So the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So -2 minus 4, or plus -4 is -6. 5 minus 2 is 3. That means my slope is -2. So that's step 1. Step 2 says choose either one of the points and plug it in for the x1, y1 in your point slope form. So I usually just pick the first ordered pair, or if the ones that have the more positive values to it, because I'm less likely to make mistakes. It's up to you. Either one will make the equation come out true, and I'll show you in class tomorrow that that's actually true. Unless you're watching this on a Friday, then I will show you Monday. Okay, so I'm going to choose this point, and I'm going to use y minus y1 equals, here's the slope we just found, -2 times the quantity of x minus x1. So now I have this equation. What I want to do is take this equation and write it in slope-intercept form. So we see parentheses here. First task, get rid of those. So it's -2x plus 4. All I did was take -2 times x and -2 times -2. Now I need to add 4 so that y can be by itself. And we can see that y is equal to -2x plus 8. Now I can see that my y-intercept is 8. All right, let's try another one. I don't think one's going to do it on that. Okay, so again, step 1, let's find our slope from the 2 points. I'm going to underline my x's and circle my y's. The slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 9 minus 6 is 3. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. So we can see that our slope is 1/2. Now I'm going to pick points, and this time I guess I'll pick the second one. Why not? Just to show you that it doesn't really make a difference. You can pick either ordered pair. You can't pick an x from this one and a y from this one, though. You have to use the x and y either from here or from here. You can't take one from each. So I'm going to set this up. Y minus y1 equals the slope you just found times x minus x1, which is really now an x plus 2, right? Because x was a negative 2, and x minus negative 2 means plus a positive. So step 1, let's get rid of these parentheses. So now I have 1/2 x plus 1/2 times 2. That's 1. I'm going to add my 9. And y is equal to 1/2 x plus 10. So my y-intercept is 10. Voila! One more of this kind. Okay, underline my x's, circle my y's. Let's find the slope first. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Negative 4 minus 1, or plus negative 1, is a negative 5. 3 plus positive 2 is a positive 5. So my slope is a negative 1. So we're going to plug this into the point slope form, and this time I'll use the first ordered pair. Why not? Alright, so y minus y1 equals the slope times the quantity of x, and it would be minus negative 2. That makes this plus 2. Scooch a little bit. Let's distribute first. So now I have negative x plus negative 2. I want to get rid of this negative 1, so I'm going to add 1 to each side. And y equals negative x, and negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So you can write that as minus 1 or plus negative 1. At this point, I don't mind. Either way would be fine. All right, keep on going. Next page. Oh, it's story time. Yay. I know you're probably so looking forward to that. So this is kind of fun. You're pulling down a kite at a rate of 2 feet per second. After 3 seconds, your kite is 54 feet above you. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents the height y in feet of the kite after x seconds. At what height was the kite flying before you pulled it back? Whew! Okay, so what are we trying to do? I think there's 2 questions we have to answer. The first thing says we're supposed to write an equation in slope-intercept form. The second thing we have to answer is, at what height was the kite flying before you pulled it back in? Now, when I ask you at what height the kite was flying before you pulled it back in, that's actually the same thing as the y-intercept. That's what happens when x equals 0. Because it says here that x, where's it at? In the feet of the, okay, so it says represents the height y in feet of the kite after x seconds. So x is time, so I want to know when time was 0, right? And that's what happens for y-intercept. So we are given some things. It says you're pulling down your kite at a rate of 2 feet per second. Rates are slope, right? Slope is the rate that it's going up or it's going down. So this right here means m is equal to 2. You're also told that after 3 seconds, your kite's 54 feet above you. You might not recognize it now. You will after you see a bunch of these in class, but x represents the seconds, so you're given that when x is 3, the feet, which is y, is 54. So what you're given in this problem is that your slope is 2 and your ordered pair is 354. So you're given the slope and you're given a point. And you're asked to write an equation in slope-intercept form. This is just what we did in those last few examples. So we start off, we're given slope and a point, we can plug it into point-slope form, and then we'll just change it around. So I'm going to take y minus y1, that's equal to the slope, times x minus x1. And actually, something I missed, sorry, hopefully, maybe you caught it. You can talk to me about it and say, I knew that, Mrs. Tremblay. You're pulling your kite down, right? So what kind of slope is that? It's a negative slope. So if you're pulling your kite down by 2 feet, that would make this a -2, and that should be a -2. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's distribute, because I want to rearrange this into y equals mx plus b. -2 times x is -2x. -2 times -3 is a +6. I need this 54 to go away, so I'm going to add 54. And y equals -2x plus 60. Now we said before that, so here's our equation, that's part 1. We said before that the height the kite was before you pulled it back in occurred when x is 0, right? Well, when x is 0, guess what y is? Yup, it's 60. So right here, that's the height the kite was before you pulled it back in, 60 feet. Voila. So there's part 1. There's part 2. We're going to try one more similar to this, because this was kind of tricky. All right. This one's about parasailing. That's a fun math story. That would be nice. I had a dream last night that I was teaching a class in Hawaii. I would take us parasailing if we were in Hawaii, and we could really have the application story time going. I wish. I'm sure you do too. So you finish parasailing, you're being pulled back to a boat at a rate of 10 feet per second. That sounds really fun. After 2 seconds, you are 35 feet above the boat. Write an equation in slope-intercept form that represents the height y in feet above the boat after x seconds. So y is height, x is seconds. At what height were you parasailing before being pulled back to the boat? So if I ask you at what height, okay, that tells you we're looking for the y-intercept. We're looking for what y is, because y is height after 0 seconds. So similar to before, I give you a rate. I tell you you're being pulled back to the boat at a rate of 10 feet per second. So that is going to be your slope. But if you're being pulled back to the boat, that means you're going down 10 feet, which would make that a -10. You're also told after 2 seconds what your height is. X is seconds, y is the feet. That's what it says right down here, y, feet, x, seconds. So you're given the slope is -10, and you're given an ordered pair of 2 35. So this is really just very similar to the other problem we did. If you want, you could hit pause, work it out, and see if you get it right. Welcome back if you did hit pause. I'm going to set this up as y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. That's my step 1. Now I want to rearrange this because I asked you to give me an equation in slope-intercept form. So step 1, let's remove those parentheses. I get -10x plus 20, because when you distribute, that's what happens. And then I want to get rid of this -35, so I will add a +35. So y is equal to -10x plus 55. There's part 1 of your answer. There's your equation. Now when I ask you at what height you were parasailing before being pulled back to the boat, I'm asking you what y is when x is 0. When x is 0, y is 55. So that's your answer. It's 55 feet. So here's part 1. Here is part 2. You are done. I'll see you tomorrow.